Azeroth has been stuck in time for a while. This is no secret, and that makes sense to an extent. I mean, Blizzard can exactly update Northrend or Pandaria every single expansion so that we can see how the people are living there. However, since BFA, there have been some zones, some characters, some events that occurred that really need to be cleared up, and it is entirely possible that we could actually see some sort of an update in Dragonflight. There is Undercity, Gilneas, Icecrown Citadel, Plaguelands, and a bunch of other zones. We can observe this with the essentially confirmed time skip, meaning that several years can pass between the end of Shadowlands and the start of Dragonflight, as well as some updated models with data mine that indicate that we might actually be seeing some changes. So, what zones, characters, and events need to be addressed by time skip, and what could we see revamped? Imagine a full-on RPG right in your pocket. Well, no need, because there is Raid Shadow Legends that you can download with my QR code or the links below that you can play on both mobile and PC. You might know that it has over 600 champions, but it also has an insane variety of bosses. There's the Minotaur. Despite his appearances, one of the easiest bosses to deal with. He'll usually hex your champions and deal bonus damage for 2 turns, but you can simply just overwhelm him as he's really not all that tough. Or if you want to be strategic about it, you can block and remove some of the debuffs and clear the hexes. This month, Raid has a non-stop schedule of events, including Forge Pass Season 3 with amazing rewards, new champions, and some skins for Madame Ceres. Later this month, Raid, as requested, is turning the ultimate Death Knight into a legendary champion. So it's never been a better time to start. Use my link or scan the QR code on the screen, and all new players will get a free starter pack worth $30, a free champion Tyrell, and also all this crazy in-game loot. See you in-game. So, let's be real, we're definitely not going to see an update to Azeroth like we had all the way back in Cataclysm, where Blizzard essentially just rebuilt the entire planet. I think we just need to accept that some things will be stuck in time. There will be some unclear lore and some unclear story progression. For example, I doubt we're going to see what is going to happen to Outland and how the people are living there, if they even are living there, or that we're going to see much of Pandaria, or that Blizzard is going to update us on the Tuskar daily life in Northrend. Sure, we might see some sort of a mention, maybe some small isolated quest line where we go to these continents, but with events and the zones like these that are really not relevant, it is hardly possible that Blizzard is going to invest their entire team in just rebuilding everything in order to stay consistent with the lore. However, on the other side, there actually are some relevant and hot areas that really need to be addressed and that could directly or indirectly be tied in with Dragonflight. Most of the evidence comes directly from the Dragonflight Alpha, where Blizzard essentially confirmed that a time skip will be happening. You probably already know this news, I don't want to repeat myself a million times, but the quickest summary possible is that Lor'themar and Talystra are now married. There is an alliance conversation as well, where it is confirmed that several years get passed. Of course, we don't know what several means, but in my opinion, it is definitely 3 years or probably somewhere closer to 5, which is, when you think about it, actually a really long time on Azeroth. Keep in mind, like, expansions such as the Legion occur over a period of like 1 or 2 years, and that essentially changed like half the world, so 3 to 5 years passing on Azeroth should mean that we should see some really significant changes just everywhere. So our first hint for what could happen in this timescape revamp scenario comes from this alliance conversation. We learned that Anduin has actually been missing for years now. Back in 9.2.5, we knew he disappeared and went on his own way, but now this is a lot more serious, as no one knows his whereabouts and he hasn't known anything about him for multiple years. Apparently, the Secret Service had leads, but they never led anywhere, meaning there is a huge potential for a storyline here. Even more importantly, Tyrellian is no longer the temporary leader. He has been in charge of the Alliance for for like 5 years now, which is actually quite a long time. So people have gotten accustomed to him, he has gotten accustomed to leading, and he's no longer the guy just holding the post for Anduin until we return from the Shadowlands. Of course, we don't know where this could lead with all the crazy Terrelli and the Light Inquisitor theories, but there should be some serious changes with this in Dragonflight, and seeing that we can already see Datamind conversations talking about him, you could expect him to have a really big role in this expansion. Now, while we're talking about the Alliance, let us focus on the Eastern Kingdoms, as here is where we should see the biggest changes that might involve either a big revamp or some serious visual changes that we could see. So, if you remember, after we defeated the Jailer, the Scourge, for some reason, just went rampant and they launched attacks in the Plaguelands, in the Silvermoon, in Northrend. Now, the Scourge was defeated more than a decade ago, then they were half destroyed when the Jailer took control over them in the pre-patch, and now after Shadowlands their numbers have been culled yet again. We know the Paladins have been heavily focused on cleansing and restoring the so-called Plaguelands, which in all reality was Northern Lordaeron, and we might finally, after all this time, see some visual changes, as really the Scourge should be close to just non-existent at this point. We already kinda got some updates to the Plaguelands around Cataclysm, but now this entire thing should just be over and it should really be restored. This could result in new settlements there, possibly Alliance bases, or maybe the Horde expanding there as well, and there's just so much potential. While we're in the north, there is a possibility we could see some changes to Silvermoon. Silvermoon has been stuck in 2007, well, since 2007, and there is still that massive scar of destruction, and the entire city is just incredibly outdated. Personally, I doubt they will recreate the entire city, but we have datamined a bunch of new Blood Elven models, from ships to various items, which could lead to some sort of a partial update of the Blood Elven city. Now, let's look at the area a bit below, as we have 3 hot areas: Tearsfall Glades, the area around Gilneas, and Arathi Highlands and Stromgarde. As we can see, the Alliance won the massive battle for Stromgarde in BFA, the entire city was updated, and at this point, years have passed since this conflict. It is entirely possible that we could see Stromgarde as a new base for the Alliance, just a new city we could visit that is not just a complete battleground. It really looks excellent, and there really should be no barriers for anything there. The only issue is that this area might not really be relevant with Dragonflight, as it is just so far from the Dragon Isles. Next on the line, we have the entire storyline. Now, I don't want to bore you guys a million times with the same story, but Calia Menethil is one of the new Forsaken leaders. She pledged to take the troops out of Gilneas, and Undercity was cleansed of the plague. If you take into account that several years have passed since this event, it is entirely possible that we could see the Tearsfall Glades recovering from the scars of the recent or the not so recent Alliance invasion. We could see Undercity rebuilt and looking entirely different, and maybe not even being as much underground, the Undercity, but with the upper portion looking better. And additionally, we could see Gilneas possibly return to the Alliance in this expansion. In regards to Gilneas, this would be a massive change. I mean, Gilneas is an entire kingdom in itself, so this would definitely require an entire patch, a significant amount of content for this huge revamp to happen. But realistically, Gilneas isn't exactly entirely demolished, so they wouldn't really need to just build everything from scratch. Most importantly, this would tip the faction scale by quite a bit, as now the Alliance would have a significant base of operations and a kingdom right on the border of the undead. Blizzard obviously plans to do something here, otherwise they wouldn't give that conversation to Calia Menethil in 9.2.5, but whether this will happen in Dragonflight or the expansion after, we just really don't know at this point. Aside from this, the only update we should finally receive should be in regards to Gnomeregan, as they have been invading and retaking this place since forever, and I really think Blizzard should just give the home back to the gnomes, although I can't really connect the dots on how this could in any way be relevant to the current expansion, so for this reason alone, I feel like this might not happen yet again. Now, let's go west and look at Kalimdor, and there we should see some changes, although not as big or as numerous as the ones in the Eastern Kingdoms. We should notice a change with Darkshore and the fact that the Night Elves had retaken it, and there could be a change in power in all the areas that have been contested between the Orcs and the Night Elves, where they have been fighting for 10-15 years. Then there could possibly be something with the Sword of Sargeras, that massive sword in Silitus, as they're constantly hinting that it could be relevant in the near future. Seeing the connection between the World Soul and Dragonflight and the fact that their sword stabbed it, it is highly possible that we could finally get an update on this situation. Other than this, there really are no other zones that should be incredibly or highly relevant. We're going to see some changes to Orgrimmar and Stormwind. This was data mined months ago, but how big they're going to be is really just uncertain at this point. I'm guessing something to add the Draktyr to transition them as faction members, maybe a few moved buildings here and there, but I doubt anything close to the scale of Cataclysm updates is going to happen, where the entire city will just be completely rebuilt. Then we have the bit more obscure areas such as Zandalar and Kultiras. There should realistically be some serious updates to these areas, as much has happened since BFA, but unfortunately I think these two islands are going to suffer the same fate as Northrend, Pandaria, and the Broken Isles, as they're just going to be stuck in time. Now, while we're talking about Northrend, there is no way they're going to update the entire continent, but realistically there should be some visual changes to the entire Icecrown area, as that was incredibly relevant quite recently. The Lich King is no more, the Scourge is all but destroyed, and the Jailer literally used that machinery below the Citadel to do his thing where he was defeated, so I could totally see an isolated update to a zone or two happening in Northrend, but only if there is some type of a questline there to make this relevant, maybe something involving the Death Knights. While realistically, Azeroth really is just begging for a revamp. Unfortunately, I have a feeling like Blizzard is not going to put that much effort into this time skip to make the transition entirely realistic, but even if they do, half of the things I mentioned on this list, it will definitely be worth it, and it will just enhance the game. Thank you for watching. Check out the new models that were data mined in the alpha by click on the screen, and check out Doran's Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.